Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Marler. I'm N4CLO. I am currently the net manager for the Williamson County, Tennessee Amateur Radio Emergency Service Group, and I'm an assisting net control operator as well as the scheduler for the Middle Tennessee Emergency Amateur Repeater System. So I'm going to be discussing various aspects of operation of our severe weather or Skywarn Net. Tennessee is part of an active severe weather area called Dixie Alley, and unfortunately, we lead the nation in deaths from nocturnal tornadoes. So the topics I'll be discussing this evening from the Skywarn Net objective is number one, on the county level, using the Williamson County, Tennessee ARES, which I will hereby refer to as WCARES, as the example. Moving then to our statewide net, that is the Middle Tennessee Emergency Amateur Repeater System, which I will hereby herefore refer to as MTIRS. I'll go to the net control station level, and that is me. And I'll share some ideas that I have about improving service to our served agency, the National Weather Service, as well as to our community, and have a few conclusions at the end. So with that in mind, let's get started and look at a Skywarn Net at the county level using WCARES as the example. This is a map of the Williamson County repeater system. We have 5 continually linked repeaters. Our hub is right here, the Franklin UHF. Our EOC is right a little bit above the 2 dots, but the repeater with the best coverage we have here in Williamson County is this guy up here, the Brentwood repeater. For the reason it's mounted near the top of a 108-foot high tower, and terrain is a little over 1,000 feet. So we get excellent coverage, not just of Williamson County, but a lot of the surrounding counties as well. And just for your information, the MTIRS hub repeater, and I'll discuss MTIRS in just a moment, is right about here in Nolensville. So I'll begin by summarizing how Williamson County prepares for severe weather. NWS Nashville holds weather briefings every Monday and Thursday, and afterward a PDF is mailed to participants. The slides include the Storm Prediction Center's convective weather or winter weather outlooks. Now I review these and based on the threat level, decide if a net is needed. The SPC thunderstorm risk levels range from 1 to 5, with 1 being a marginal risk, 5 being high risk. If the convective level is 1 or marginal, I generally just handle that net myself. However, if the risk is 2, which is slight or above, indicating a potentially longer-lived event, I'll send an email to the Skywarn Net Control Group asking who is available to assist. And I make these arrangements as far in advance as I can, at a minimum a day before. Each of our net control shifts is generally 2 hours, but that can vary depending on how many net operators are available. I also create an online fillable ICS 214 form and place it in our Skywarn net control folder in Dropbox for operator use if it's needed. They copy it to their own computers, they fill in during their shift, then they email it to our emergency coordinator after the net closes. Our net goes into standby or monitoring mode when a watch is issued for the county. Net control begins to monitor the Williamson linked repeater system, the MTIR system, as well as NWS chat. And if any of you, which I doubt here, but if any of you are not familiar with chat, I'll have a discussion about that in a moment. Activation of our county net is precipitated by county severe weather warning or a significant warned weather event in an adjoining county. A significant event in an adjoining county would be a confirmed tornado on the ground bordering our county. We actually had this happen December 10th of last year. That was as part of the Mayfield tornado system moved into Middle Tennessee. Reportable severe weather or winter weather criteria is always given by our net control at the beginning of the net and is repeated throughout the net. Traffic during our active net is limited to severe weather or weather-related damage only. And this may be different from the area that the rest of you live in, but because of our topography here in Williamson County, we have lots of hills, lots of valleys, lots of narrow roads. Williamson does not deploy mobile spotters. However, other counties in Tennessee do. For the few of you that may not know what NWS Chat is, here's a little summary. In short, it is the National Weather Service's instant messaging system. Each NWS office has its own room. Right now, you're looking at a screen cap of the room of Nashville OHX. You really can't see it here, but right about here would be OHX. We have MegChat here in the corner, which is Memphis. So the rooms are here. Storm and damage reports are logged into OHX ham chat, which is strictly for Middle Tennessee ham operators if that event or damage is significant. Access to chat is limited to an emergency management community, emergency coordinators, Skywarn Net Control operators, such as those in Aries and Races, as well as the electronic media, which is commercial radio and television. So chat access is given on a need-to-know basis, but failure to be approved is not a reflection on the operator's ability. Now, we've had some folks locally be concerned that they're being denied access to critical weather information because they were denied access to chat. Well, later in this presentation, I'll give an alternative that our net control groups use that anyone anywhere can use. When our station or when our net goes active, stations are asked to make only reports meeting stated criteria for the weather event. So for convective weather, tornado, funnel cloud, rotating wall cloud, winds in excess of 5.8 miles per hour measured, and so forth. Now, there is an exception. Occasionally, National Weather Service requests other information. For example, they may be asking for current conditions in a warned area in the absence of reports. In that case, Net Control will go on the air, ask for current condition in that area, and even though it doesn't meet criteria, they're answering a question. So that's a perfect response. That's what we're looking for. Stations are asked to report to the local county net of their residents or where they're traveling. So Williamson County residents are asked to report to WCARES. A Williamson County resident who's traveling in Davidson County, which is north of us, would report their traffic or damage to Davidson County. There's two reasons we ask that. Number one, it helps ensure that the report details are vetted by a local county net control operator. It also helps county residents know what is happening in their area, especially with people at work who may have an HT or a lot of new ops. They have a radio with one display. They're generally listening to the local net. So they need to be kept abreast of what's going on in their area. Again, during our net, logging is done using an ICS 214 and then reposted to OHX ham chat if the event or damage is significant. Pertinent NWS comments may be given on occasion. What is a pertinent comment? All stations stand by. Severe weather warning is imminent. All stations stand by. NWS says they have a tornado debris signature. That would be a pertinent comment. Regarding communication between our net control operators, most of this discussion between net controls and alternates is done via text message. This keeps the frequency and airwaves, the airwaves clear for traffic, and also it can provide a written reminder if that's needed. And of course, our net is secured when the weather threat has ended and there are no additional reports. Now, occasionally what happens is net control may monitor frequency a bit longer. Someone's driving home. They haven't gotten home yet. They arrive. There may be damage to their home. Net control may be standing by to take a late report. So now you have a basic overview of how our county net runs. So at this time, having seen the county net, let's move to our statewide net, and that is MTIERS. So MTIERS, you can see the state of Tennessee. You can see the relative position of the 34 linked repeaters in our system, along with the coverage area of each of the 4 Weather Service offices that serve Tennessee. They're delineated by these green lines. Each of our repeaters has a number, and these correspond with the state-assigned county numbering designations. The one exception is the hub that is in Eastern Williamson. It's simply designated as the hub. Now note that though it spans the entire state of Tennessee, MTIERS primarily handles on-air traffic from Middle Tennessee, as the name suggests. For example, the Memphis group has a DMR net, and some of their own forecasters act as net control for that net. Same thing for MRX, Morristown, which would be right about here. They have, they utilize their radio operators to a lesser extent in their area. So MTIERS, mostly Middle Tennessee. Now, when I am deciding if a net is needed for MTIERS, I use input for all 4 Weather Service offices. I use all 4 briefings. I'm putting the emphasis is on what is going on in Memphis, what is going on in Nashville. Memphis is to our west. Our weather here tends to drift from the west toward the east. In significant events, MTIERS may be included in the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, or TEMA, coordination group call. And that is because MTIERS has operating agreements with both NWS Nashville as well as TEMA. Staffing, again, as far in advance as possible. The shifts here are 4 hours. I ask that relief operators begin monitoring the frequency 1/2 hour before their shift begins. That allows them to get caught up on everything maybe going on in chat, any technical issues. They'll be able to have that sorted out by the time they need to relieve. Now, as far as staffing, while I recruit both on air and the DMR operators, after that, there is a division of labor. I then work with the on-air net control group, the UHF group, while the MTIERS technical operation coordinator, K1KY Tom Delker, many of you know him, he works with the DMR meshnet in WinLink. We use Slack to sign up and recruit people for monitoring. We also can send an email out to the MTIERS net control group. If you're not familiar with Slack, Slack is a business communications app that allows users to be grouped into chat rooms. It also has a video conferencing feature that is used to alert users about MTIERS activation, and it can also be used to train new and potential net control operators in real time. They can listen to the radio and they can be getting direction via Slack, so it's quite useful. Monitoring or standby mode for MTIERS begins when a watch is issued or winter weather begins. I'll pause to wet my mouth here. At the time that monitoring begins, we begin a check-in of any county liaisons that are monitoring the frequency. We define a county liaison as an emergency manager, an emergency coordinator, county net control like WCARES. Also, in counties where there isn't an active net or there's no radio group, if there is an individual who is willing to relay any traffic or reports for their net, they can be their county liaison. At time of check-in, we ask for their call sign, their name, the county they're representing, and the repeater ID. That's remember the numbers on the repeater system on the map to be given during their initial check-in. MTIRS also goes on air with issues with the NOAA weather radio transmitter. We had one out last week. That information went over the air and people were able and were directed to alternates for their home weather radio systems. And we give a repeater system status update if needed on the air. The MTIRS net goes into active mode when a watch is issued, when weather warnings are issued, or significant winter weather occurs. Net control uses their best judgment. Now that's kind of vague, isn't it? Why isn't it more specific? It's because there's a number of variables. This is a statewide net. So what kind of watch is it? How much territory does it cover? Does it just cover 1 or 2 counties on the end of the state, or the west part, or maybe on the south? If there is a larger watch, is there clear air in the watch area at this time so nothing is happening? Sometimes we've actually had spin-up tornadoes in isolated cells with no previous watch. And if that is a one-off, the net may not be activated. And so hence the term net control uses their best judgment. But I would say that to be qualified by, that would generally be after conferring with another operator. It's generally K1KY Tom Delker. At the time of activation, we put aside our personal call signs and use the tactical call Kilo 4 Oscar Hotel X-ray. And that way, for new people, they don't have to remember who's the net control. It's always K4OHX. We make additional calls for county liaisons, especially those who are affected by a watch or a warning. K4OHX monitors all 4 NWS office chat rooms plus OHX ham chat, which then becomes the log for that event. And generally, we also monitor our local repeater. In especially active events, we announce, jumped ahead of myself here, net control over the air announces all pertinent NWS products, what is the hazard, the affected counties, the cities, and the duration. Now, if it is a very high impact event, like a tornado outbreak, we go into what's called executive mode. Warning only, the event in the county. That maximizes the frequency for people to call in with reports. And as far as communication between MTIRS net control operators, we use the Slack rooms, either the main room or we have a direct messaging option. Chat, as you know, also has a direct messaging option, and it allows, again, off-air communication and coordination, but it also provides a written record, which if in case it's needed. Again, all significant weather products, special weather statements, watches and warnings are read over the air. All traffic and reports are logged into OHX ham chat, then are reposted to the appropriate NWS room if it's significant. If it's just someone checking in, that is not reposted. If it's, I think he's on here, N1 ATS in Cumberland County, and he has a tornado on the ground, that definitely gets reposted to OHX chat. The primary focus, again, is Middle Tennessee, but K4OHX takes reports from any section of Tennessee and can deliver that to the applicable NWS chat room if it's needed. We also go through significant events from the county nets and repost those to the chat room as necessary. Again, stations are asked to report to their local county net, as for reasons we explained before. But if there isn't a county net, the operator is mobile and it would not be safe for them to program the frequency in PL while they're mobile, we take that report. And finally, the MTIERS net is secured when all the watches expire. There's been a long period of no additional warnings or reports. And also, we generally confer with a meteorologist before we announce the net close, just to make sure we're not going to be missing anything. So now you have a summary of how our statewide MTIERS net works. So to review the topic of the county and state nets: county, local frequencies, receiving and vetting local reports, announcing local county-specific watches and warnings, monitoring their local NWS chat office room, and then they repost significant local events to OHX Ham Chat, versus the state net MTIERS. It's a clearinghouse. It monitors all 34 repeaters in the system. It monitors all the 4 offices. They announce all the NWS products that are pertinent to that event, statewide reports from county liaisons, mobile operators. We review the county reports and then repost these, as said, into the appropriate chat room. So now, having discussed the nets themselves, let's move on to the individual net control station, and that is me. Equipment-wise, I use a dual display 710 running 50 watts into a Diamond X200 antenna mounted in my attic. So I don't have any issues with my antenna falling over in the wind. If my antenna does go over in the wind, I have bigger problems than just an antenna falling.
Somebody's got their mic open. Go ahead, Laura, I'm sorry.
Okay. In addition, by my desk, I have 2 Stark lithium-ion batteries. One is 20 amp hours, the other is 50 amp hours. All of my radio components, as per ARIES standard, are connected using Anderson power poles, and I can switch from wall current to battery power in roughly 20 seconds. It may be as long as 30 if I have to grope around the dark for my flashlight. So that gives you a little précis of what I use equipment-wise. But now, what other tools do I use during a WeatherNet activation? NWS chats on my computer, of course. I also keep my primary email open. I've had a number of occasions during our local county net, I can't copy the station or they can't copy me. So rather than just say, do you copy, I will say, station calling n4clo@arrl.net. And 9 times out of 10, I'll get an email from them. But look at the information I now have. I don't have to guess what the city is. I don't have to guess the street names. They write them down. They may have damage reports or pictures of their damage. And also, I have an email to return if I need more information. So it's very handy. If you're comfortable giving out your email address on the air, that's a good option. Of course, I have my ICS fillable or my ICS 214 online fillable document open, but I keep paper forms as well as blank paper just in case I need it. I use Twitter a lot for a couple of reasons. Number one is if things are quiet, I'll use it to browse for additional weather information. I am a sucker for weather pictures, so I'll go through seeing if I can find any pictures of the particular event. But I also use it to access the Iowa Environmental Mesonet bot for the NWS products in case chat goes down. And I'll talk about that in a moment. QRZ.com. Very, very helpful to check call signs, to check the home county and location. However, if you decide to use that, or if you have used it in the past, you know you have to ask people, is the information on QRZ.com correct? We have a couple of people here in Williamson County that live a few miles from me that are showing that they live in New York. I don't think that's right. So always ask, but it's a useful tool to have up. I keep a list of the main cities in Tennessee, as well as what county they're situated as a quick reference. I keep a radio group frequency and contact list by Middle Tennessee County. That is generally the Aries groups and a county by county list of active nets. So I know the frequency, and many times I also have the name of the emergency coordinator. I keep Google Maps open. Important in case there's ambiguity of a road name or an intersection. It's also handy in cases of cities that straddle several counties to check those county boundaries. And of course, being a weather freak, I always have a radar app running. My app of choice is Radar Scope. It's simple, it's no frills, but it works. I also have GR Level 2. GR Level 2, if you've ever used it before, it's very customizable using little instructions called place files. There's places out in the net where you can get information to customize this. One thing that's used here in Middle Tennessee quite a bit, if you run APRS, you can add a string of text to your comment field, and voila, you show up on the GR product radar. There's a slight delay, but that can be really, really handy if you have an operator that is going into or coming out of a warned area. My problem is I use a Mac, and Gibson Ridge products are, I believe, exclusively Windows-based. So I have to use Parallels or some other form of Windows emulator. But I have it and I can use it if I need to. Now, I mentioned Twitter. A lot of people like to look through Facebook. I don't like Facebook. I like Twitter for its brevity. Again, for several reasons. One is to look for additional weather information, but also our net control operators, especially with M-tiers, use it as a backup in case NWS chat goes down and they have no other access to warning information. Many of you have other ways of getting information about watches and warnings if chat goes down. This is simple and it's very easy because it's accessible via the internet or a smartphone. You also don't need a Twitter account to access it. Now, if you do have a Twitter account, it can be configured to send specific feed notifications to your phone or device. If it's going to be a rough, rocky day weather-wise, I will enable the notifications from the IEM bots for NWS Nashville and NWS Memphis. If I do for M-tiers, I will do all 4 offices. So each of these tweets contains a hyperlink to the full details of the weather event. This is an example. This is a screen cap I made. I clicked on the particular tweet. You see there's a little précis of what the event is. You have a cute little map and more details, but you also have a hyperlink. When you click on the hyperlink, you see this. You have the full information just as it would be on NWS chat if you click the NWS bot. You have the product, you have the time, you have the affected counties, you have what the event will be, the hazard, the source, the impact, the cities impacted, the latitude and longitude, any additional hazard, and the meteorologist that issued that. That's all available. It's quite handy and we use it a lot. Again, there are other methods of getting this information, but this is what we like. Also, another consideration is, for those of you who are concerned about not having access to crucial weather communication, for example, you may be at a social event, you may be at a sporting event, you don't have your radio, or that operator that has been denied access to chat simply because it wasn't deemed that he or she has it. Here's your read-only option. It's every single product that the NWS puts out for that particular office. Again, it's read-only, it's no posting, but as long as you have an internet access, you can quickly get your weather information. Well, the big problem with chat is we've become so dependent on it. Well, we now have a number of options for getting information, but what if it goes down and we need to get reports in to the Weather Service? Well, these are a few things that we use. Number one is the good old telephone. And using the good old telephone allows us to practice our message handling skills or our message passing skills. And high impact events, and several occasions, National Weather Service has opened a Google Talk link. That's like a video communication. It's roughly similar to Zoom, and it also has a text option. The NWS has to set that up, but if chat goes down, we can communicate again directly with them. I've sent emails to the meteorologists on shift. I have a list of their email addresses just in case. I also have a private number from OHX, which is a last resort. They prefer not to use it, but I solemnly pinky swear to not use it unless everything else was unavailable. But that text messaging is optional. We have at OHX Nashville a VHF UHF radio. I believe it's a Kenwood 700 or a 710A. I've used it, I think the last time I was there was 5 years ago during a tornado outbreak. With COVID, NWS is pretty much closed off, but it is available. I know there's at least one meteorologist on staff that is a licensed amateur radio operator. So hopefully that will be an option again for high impact events in the future. So I've discussed net operation from county, state, and individual levels. And so I have some thoughts about how to improve service to our served agency, which is the National Weather Service in this case, as well as our communities. And I want to begin by talking about educating our net control operators. And this includes myself as well. One thing is to encourage ongoing Skywarn training. Don't just take a basic and advanced and say you know it. That has to be continually reinforced unless you use it every single day. It's free, it's an hour of your time. There are online options, so it's a good investment and it continually reinforces your information. Here in Tennessee, Nashville Weather Service has a feature every spring called Weather 101. I don't know if they do anything like this other parts of the country, but Weather 101 is a more in-depth discussion of weather topics. What they're offering this year, for example, is exactly how does the Weather Service conduct a tornado damage survey, excuse me. Sorry about that. How upper air sounds are interpreted when you get back the radiosonde information. How are severe thunderstorms formed? How is a quasi-linear convective service formed? Things like that, a little bit deeper. Again, it's an hour of your time and it's continuing to reinforce the knowledge that we already have. Net control operators should be active on all the nets they can. They can't call all of them, but we can participate. They learn the protocols of good net operation. And also an important thing is they put call sign, name, and voice together, which is very, very useful. How many times of all of us who have been net control operators, we can't get the call sign, but we recognize enough of the voice to say that's so-and-so. That's a useful skill to have. Very important to listen and learn from other net control operators. And I'll say it right now, if I hear any of you on the air and I like what you do, I'm going to steal your technique. I will give you credit for it. But if it's working for you, if it's a good technique and it helps the job to get done better, that's how we learn. We learn from listening and learning from each other. Learn about the workings of our repeater system, not just what the frequencies, input, output, and the PL is. For someone like myself, I'm a secretary. I do not come from a technical background. So every little bit I can learn about the repeater system, the idiosyncrasies of a given repeater, that's a bonus. I've now become more equipped, hopefully, to do my assignment. And encourage giving out information on air only from reliable and well-vetted sources to keep unverified rumors off the air. This isn't a weather event, but many of you may have heard about the 2020 Nashville bombing. WCARES, MTIRS, and our associated county DCARES were on the air giving out information because internet coverage was out. And the criteria was only from a vetted report, a statewide newspaper, the Associated Press, because we wanted to give people only the accurate information. Even more with a weather event where it's dynamic, be that reliable source of information. And all of us need to learn to be more flexible. If we can't do things one way, find another way to get our job done. How do we educate the listeners to our net? Well, again, encourage that basic weather information. Not everybody is a weather freak like me or our other net control operators, but everyone is affected by it. Basic class, advanced class. At least when you look out at the sky, you have an idea of what those clouds are, and you're just a little bit more informed, and it may help you at the time you have to make a report. Explain to people why things are done in a net in a particular way. For example, why do we encourage everyone to support the local county net? Well, I mentioned the reasons before. And why is it during an active net I can't call in and say I've got partly cloudy and 69 degrees? Well, in there are certain cases that's appropriate, but generally the reasons why we do that in a certain way. And very, very important to build appreciation and listenership to all of our nets, our routine weekly net, our Skywarn, other emergency nets. Encourage people to monitor because they know that there will always be someone available if there's a weather event. We are that reliable source of on-air information. Vetting reports, of course, a good weather report, what, where, when. Now, when I first started out with MTIRS, a very, very good net control operator that I had worked with on our MTIRS weekly net, N4AAN, sent me an email suggesting that I use the NWS format for reports. And there's some variation, but it's generally city first, then the county, so they know exactly where it is. And location. And location of the report is the streets and intersections. If a road is involved, what is the direction of travel? If you get a call saying, I'm driving on I-24 and there's a tree down in the left lane, well, are you driving eastbound or westbound? That left lane changes direction-wise depending on where you're going. So also give the mile markers, and that's a good thing to encourage people to do. Give all the details. If they put their thumb on a map, what would be beneath their thumb? Obviously, when things are going south, we can't make the report pretty. We get it in as best we can. But as long as we get the what, where, when, if we have time, put it in an NWS format. Sometimes we have to ask tactful questions of the people calling in a report. They're calling in a wall cloud, but the radar doesn't really seem that. There's a gust front, and browsing through Twitter, there's a really, really impressive looking shelf cloud. Wall cloud is inflow, shelf cloud is outflow. So ask tactful questions to try to divide what are they actually seeing. And again, tactful because they're the ones that are on site, and we don't want them to feel belittled. Their report is useless. What is why am I doing this? They're just putting me down, or even worse, tell them they're not seeing something they really do. So try to get tactful questions to get the accuracy of what their report is. For people who report, do they have a measured hail size? Do they have snow measurements or damage pictures? Again, if you're comfortable sharing your email on the air, send them in. The NWS loves stuff like that. And if you get that operator who is calling in to report a 200-mile-per-hour wind gust, it's always good to ask them, oh, is that estimated or measured? Because we tend to estimate wind speeds high. It takes a lot of practice for people to be more accurate with estimated wind speeds. Whereas your home weather station, if it's well calibrated, or you have a handheld anemometer such as a Kestrel, that's a better guide. So again, is it estimated or measured? And again, stick to the facts. Don't say what you think you see, say what you actually see, and then let the Weather Service determine what that event actually is. And finally, appreciating all of us, all of the net control operators and all the net participants, because the people on the nets, whether they're the net control or the people listening to our events, they are the most valuable resource out there. They are volunteering eyes and ears. They're volunteering radio skills. They're bringing in their life experience and skills, and they're volunteering their time. So make them feel that they are appreciated. One way to do that is use their personal name. Now, I mentioned him before. I've never met N1ATS, but I know if there are 2 clouds in the sky, Cumberland County is going to be monitoring. And so the FCC says N1ATS in Cumberland County, but I can say, thank you, Al. That's a personal name. And we're people, we're not call signs. Thank the net participants for monitoring and supporting the nets. Those of us who have had late night nets where no one has been there, this is N4CLO 73, I'm clear. And then out of the darkness, someone says, net control, this is so-and-so, thanks for being there. They may have been there all the time. They just didn't call in because they didn't have a report. So make the assumption that they are there and thank them for being there. And one that is very, very close to my heart. Thank the reporting stations for being patient when we absolutely, positively cannot get their very simple report. Our ears are full of wax. Our fingers have broken. The keyboard is jammed and the pencil lead has broken. Just let them know, thank you for that report. Thank you for being patient, and we'll get it in. So how could these points improve our relationship with our served agency, the Weather Service, as well as for our local community? Well, our specific reports give the Weather Service immediate information or confirmation of a weather event or damage. That can result in fewer questions during a busy weather day. It also increases the Weather Service confidence in the usefulness of us in the amateur radio community. Locally, it encourages participation and confidence in our local nets, and it encourages monitoring and confidence in the information reliability of a state net. So putting everything together, active and effective local nets encourage participation, and that can mean more reports or better quality reports. An active and effective statewide net gives a wide area information to all listeners, and it ensures Weather Service staff everywhere receive all their relevant reports. Well-prepared net control operators are ready and able to handle whatever comes up during their shift. Our accurate reports encourage good relations between the amateur radio community and the Weather Service, and all of us build better communication skills, which include problem solving, flexibility, and to focus on what are the priority issues. Well, having said all of this, there's one last thing, and that's to say thank you. Thank you for your attention this evening. This concludes my presentation. I have a few references if anyone is interested. And at this time, I will stand by in case anyone has any questions or comments.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was a professional job. We certainly appreciate it.
Yes, very much so. Can you lower your desktop, please?
Okay, I'll stop share.
Perfect.
Thank
Yay.
you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You Marlers are so smart.
All right, Brent has got his hand up. You got a question there, Brent?
Yes, I do, Dan. Thanks very much. And Laura, it was an incredible evening listening to you talk tonight. Being that I'm as weather warned as you are, I live by it constantly. And I do have a Kessler that I keep handy.
Yes.
And I also keep the forever little handheld with me at all times. But I want to ask you, this Skywarn that you have that's an hour long, is there any way of finding out how to get on that list to get to see that? The Skywarn training for the hour-long Skywarn training that they have? Be nice to-
Check your weather service office. They should have on their schedule. I believe you're in Ontario.
Yes, I am.
Check that. They should have that. Here in, at least for our 4 weather service offices, we have, you can go to the website and they will have a schedule for training. Generally, it's in the spring because I don't know what it is for Canada, but for most of the middle section of the United States, spring, especially April, is the peak weather month. It certainly is for Tennessee and I know Oklahoma and surrounded areas and the larger Tornado Alley. So go to your weather service site and see if they have training, basic and advanced. The online sites have gone even more popular because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so that's encouraged people. It's an hour of their time. They're at home anyway. So just try that. So
Okay.
look at your site.
Okay, we'll see what I can find out. I know that through the Canada side or Ontario side, that I'm in contact with them on a regular basis, but they don't seem to have anything as far as the hour, like an hour-long thing. We usually have it once a year. They have a program,
awesome.
okay, and then that's it. And then you have to wait till next March before you get the next program.
Mhm.
But I thought if you could just get something that's a refresher once a month or once every 2 months to watch. I don't think it matters what state it comes from.
Yeah.
As long as because they're all the same.
You might want to check, I'm trying to think, Norman, Oklahoma. Do an online search for basic spotter training. There should be a module online. I know for basic there was at one time. I don't know if there's an advanced.
Okay, that's just Norman, Oklahoma.
And that's not the Storm Prediction Center. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, that's okay. I'll find it. That's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay,
Just look
thank you.
for basic spotter training.
Okay.
I mean, it's not going to go out of date because storm features are going to be the same 1,000 years from now. So
Okay.
search for that.
Okay.
You know, I have my email address at the end of my presentation, and I invite anyone to share, Debbie, whoever would like to share your information, what you do for your net. Like I said, I will steal the good stuff and take it back, and I will credit you for it. Because I'm a wonderful thief and I like to share information. But if you want to send me an email, I can send you the link to OHX. I don't think they really care where you're from.
Okay.
They have
Yeah.
basic and advanced training on there as well as Weather 101, which is really, really terrific.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, and really a pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Okay, looks like Larry, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering on your net control scheduling, do you have a list or something like that? In my group, what we do is we have a list of everybody. And if you're scheduled and you can't make it, it is up to you to say, hey, go find someone to do your net control for you if it's at all possible.
Mhm.
That way, all the team members participate and get training in net control. And I find that to be quite inducive. And even the people who don't attend a lot of the meetings or other systems, they always seem to jump in and do the net control.
Mhm.
So I just wonder if you had anything like that going on with your team.
Yes,
Yeah.
For the county net, for the WCARES net, we have 5 net control operators in our Skywarn group. And that's what I was saying at the beginning. When I review the briefing, I decide, do we need to have net monitoring? Is there possibility of activation if it is a slight or over? If it's just marginal risk, I handle it myself. So I have a list of them and I distribute it to the group. For the M-Tiers group, I generally do that via Slack. Again, Slack is the communication app, and post it in 2 rooms, the M-Tiers main room, as well as the M-Tiers net control room, and saying, let me know your availability. I do have a list of all the net control operators that are available, and it can be a little bit more challenging for the M-Tiers net. It's a longer duration net and a longer shift, but I hope that answers your question. Yes, I do have lists of both.
I might make a comment here. I noticed in your presentation that at some point you were using the ARRL's server for email. In other words, K7REX@ARRL.net. Is that a good idea? Because ARL, for example, has already been down for several days. When that thing's down, the email doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. I haven't had any problem. If it's here in Williamson County, I also have a mailer that I send out to Williamson residents for portable ops. I coordinate a portable operations group for every Tuesday. So if you are in Williamson County, I generally know you, and I don't mind them having my personal call sign. For people I don't know, I generally use N4CLO@ARRL. Just for privacy. We had a spate here where a number of people were getting spam emails for medicines for body parts some of us don't even have. So we're just being a little bit more careful with giving out our personal emails on the air.
Yes. Okay, Barry, there's a lot going on in the chat. Enlighten us.
Okay. Victor KI7MMZ wants to know what the dimensions are of Williamson County.
Ooh. I actually can't give you that. Steve,
What was
this is a perfect time for you.
What was the question?
The dimensions
Size.
of Williamson County.
The dimension?
Yeah.
The size.
Oh, it is a really a satellite portion of the capital city, Nashville. I'd say there's probably 300 to 400,000 people there. It is a very wealthy county, and they have just about every facility. The size of their public safety facility is bigger than the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency's facility in terms of square feet and functionality. It's probably one of the most model counties in the country as far as its resources for emergency management and public safety, and the way it utilizes the ARL, for example. They probably have what, Laura, 200, 250 members of the amateur radio emergency service. Out of that, they pick a handful of people to also become reserves, which are volunteer resources or employees without pay, which have workers' comp, uniforms, badges to get in, all kinds of privileges to do things that are nasty during deployments. And Williamson County is a great base for education. They have a very active Aries educational. You can look. I don't know. I don't remember the website name, but a lot of other counties in Middle Tennessee and across the state feed from Williamson County's original information. Does that help?
Yeah.
How many square miles is it?
Oh, I don't know. I can look on the internet.
584.
There you go.
584.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
And if you look at a map of the state of Tennessee, Williamson is very, very roughly, maybe it's a little bit left of center of the county. Nashville is to our north in Davidson. So Williamson is directly below that. So if you look at a state map, you can get in fact, actually, I don't have my presentation up. There's actually a map with all the states for the M tiers. So you can get an idea there.
In 2019, it was 238,000 people. I'd say it's near 300,000 now, at least.
Just a little cow town.
247 right now, Steve, according to Wiki.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, back to Barry.
Okay, Virginia NC4VA wants to know about what you do with the 214s, but Mr. Delker answered that very nicely. It said that the 214s are retained personally and they're provided if they're asked for. Is that correct?
Yes. We use an ICS 214. Our emergency coordinator is comfortable using that only. If we went to the EOC, they might ask 213, 214, the whole thing, and we would comply with that. But for our regular Skywarn Net 214 online fillable, each person makes a copy, fills it out for their shift, and then emails a copy of that to our EC.
That also provides some evidence if there's a liability issue also, which is
Paperwork is so important.
Which is one of the main purposes of that 214 log.
Okay. Dan, WL7COO, has 3 questions.
Uh-oh.
With such total dependence on functioning access to the internet, what are you using WinLink, just in case? That's the first one. The second one is same, you use HF. And the third is how long are your NCS shifts?
Okay, answering the last one first, the net control shift is for Williamson County, it's generally 2 hours because there generally isn't a very long deployment for the on the county level. For the M-Tiers net, the shifts are we try to keep it around 4 hours. That allows a person to have a beginning time and an ending time. They're not stuck 8 hours where they can't eat, they can't go to the smallest room. So that's one thing. Williamson County does do what we call an alternate in our routine Monday net. Every third Monday, we'll do a different mode. It can be, we can check in 6 meters or simplex. We also do some practice on HF. Currently, we're not using HF in our local net. We're going to be more reliant on simplex. We do a lot of simplex drills. And as far as WinLink, that is when K1KY boldly steps into the field.
Hello, Laura. Yes,
Hello,
and I
Tom.
already, okay, can you hear me?
Can hear you, Tom.
Okay, I did answer it further up there. We do have a special routine that allows WinLink to inquire and also post to the NWS chat rooms. And that is a special utility that was developed for us. And yes, we do. Over.
It's available for anyone on RMS Relay.
And Barry, just to mention, I don't know if you heard the earlier part of my presentation. For WinLink, excuse me, for M-Tiers activation, we have a division of labor. I work exclusively with the net control group, the UHF on air. Tom handles MeshNet, WinLink, and DMR. So that's why I directed that question specifically to Tom.
He's the all-knowing and all-seeing God. So
yes, he is.
Okay, a couple of comments. NWS Amarillo, which I assume is in Texas, has a 2-part YouTube Skywarn class if anyone is interested. And the Comet Skywarn training link is in the chat. And all kinds of other great weather information is online. So, and let's see, I'm going down to the chat. And that seems to be all of the questions.
It is 9, we're 28 seconds late, Laura. Shame. You should be ashamed.
Yeah.
Just go like this, Eddie.
Well, Barry, I just want to say one more thing. I really like the idea that people are posting information about ongoing weather training, because I know myself, I call myself a weather weenie. I'm fascinated by weather. That's why I got into amateur radio, because my husband's been a ham since the 70s, and we wanted to do something, a hobby together that would be useful in our community. And this was a natural fit. And so I reinforce that information. I'm not a meteorologist, but I continually want to reinforce my knowledge. And by sitting in on as many weather classes or getting as much weather information as I can, I broaden my knowledge base, and it helps me personally talk a little better when I speak with a meteorologist, because I don't have to continually ask questions. And it helps me even to just see, looking out, for weather features. Myself and my EC, about this pre-COVID, so it'd be about 4 years ago, we're over doing checking some equipment over at our public safety center. And I looked out and I saw a cold air funnel. It was not a tornado. It was simply a cold air funnel. And I knew what it was, and it wasn't scary. So ongoing weather information, it's all for good.
Very good. I got some hands up. I'll get to them. When I send out the presentation, I'll make sure your email address is out there for everybody to get to. Of course, everybody get a copy of what's in the chat and so forth. Larry, you got your hand up. I think you went first. Go ahead.
First of all, it's a great presentation.
Thank you.
Very to the point. You don't fluff it up with a bunch of, oh, well, I can't use the term I want to. Anyhow, the one thing I think you kind of probably not even thought about it, but if you take a look at a lot of the documentation from the Federal Aviation Administration, especially when people are going for their pilots, like they're private, they have a lot of good information on weather. Mm-hmm. And they discuss a lot of little different things. And if you're really into it, that's one way to look at it. I don't have any of the current pamphlets, but these, you could be able to buy a small book. And I mean, they went everything from cartoonish all the way up to the physics and mathematics of weather, and depending upon the thing. So that's something I'll kind of look into. You might find some fascinating literature that you can study.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, because you're flying in the elements. You need to know about air currents, and if you get too close to enough draft, I mean, isn't that the basics of gliding? You need to know where your thermals are. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Again, if anyone wants to send me information, I share it with our group. We have really great net control operators in our county and in our M-Tiers group. I share that with them, and it's a win-win situation. So I appreciate that.
All right. Steve, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Tom Delker, because I'm not positive about this. How many repeaters are there linked in the Middle Tennessee Emergency Amateur Radio Repeater System? M-Tiers?
34,
yeah.
32, actually.
32, okay.
32. We had 34 at the time I made that slide, but we've had 2 offline for repairs, and I will turn it back to Tom.
That's a good number. It's always growing.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank
More
you.
to come.
All right. Thank you very much. This, you do a great job. You could do this for a living. Yeah, you're very professional. You come across very well. And Mary, you got anything more in chat?
Nope, we're clear. Everybody's just saying thank you to Laura.
Yes, we all feel that way. Laura, you got anything more?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I won't lie, I was very, very intimidated about giving a presentation to this group. When Steve Vollen, I think Tom uses the term voluntold me that it would be useful. I've seen some of the other MCOM presentations in this group, and I thought, there's nothing I can say that would be particularly of interest. So I hope, if nothing else, if it sparks more discussion about what good net protocol is, expanding our county nets, why we should do so, supporting if your state or your locality has a statewide net, it's a win-win.
Well, I'm here to say that, yes, we do have a lot of presentations. Some of our deals has attendance up to more than 500. Others have them very, very low. Where we get most of our hits these days is on the YouTube side of the world.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to follow up there. And I want to make sure that the information you're providing gets out to those folks as well.
Can I ask you one thing or add one thing, please?
Well, go ahead there, Victor.
So thank you. It is Victor. Laura, thank you. It was a great presentation. The one thing I should say here is that this is my second time with this group. I don't know about the rest of the group, but there's always new people coming in. The information you provided me is completely different from what I learned and what I know on the West Coast. So it's very valuable information, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And I just have to say, Victor, I notice you're from Everett, Washington. I used to live in Bellevue. So we're practically neighbors. But thank you for that. I was hoping to speak with people who are really in the deep heart of Tornado Alley from Oklahoma and other areas like that. My big hope that my husband and I have is to go out on a storm chase sometime and be able to listen to nets and hear how efficient the operators are. I've spent a fair amount of time on YouTube listening. There are a few nets that have been recorded and put out on YouTube, and I follow them along, and I try to learn how the net control operators work. And I found out in these high density, high storm areas, they're very efficient. They say what they need to say, shut up and listen. And then they are very effective taking the reports. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm not the best person for taking reports. It's something I have to work on. So hearing how other people do it and trying to apply it to myself is what I'm currently doing.
Well, you know, all of us, everybody here and then beyond, we just can do what we do well and do our best. And there's somebody else that put the pull in the slack for us, and together it all works. I might also ask, if you get the opportunity and you're recording some of this during one of your live events and such, let's get you back on here and have you give a real world situation type of thing. That'd be very interesting, and I look forward to that.
Yeah, I started to record her a few days ago, and I thought that isn't fair. I better ask for permission first.
Well, what I do is I tend to collect NWS chat logs. If you remember a few years ago that there was a major tornadic event that went through Davidson County in Nashville and then moved east to Wilson and Putnam and did terrible damage. It even made the national news. There was a big write-up about it in the Washington Post's Capital Weather Gang. I had just turned the net over, the MTIR's net over to another operator. And so that was just bam, 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 bam. And, you know, tornado on the ground, big tornado, lots of damage. Williamson County supplied a few operators to help out with communications in Putnam County. So yeah, so there's all kinds of things. The event we had actually December 10th of last year, we had part of that. Again, I mentioned part of the system that spawned in the western part was the Mayfield, I think it was called the Quad State Tornado for a while. Well, part of it came through Middle Tennessee as a quasi-linear convective system. And we took damage reports at 2 a.m. Again, Tennessee is notorious for their nighttime storms. So that was hopping. That was a hopping net.
You're pretty well known for your country music too. Okay, anybody else?
And 90% of the people that you know of that are famous live in Williamson County if
Yeah.
they live in Tennessee. Used to be Hendersonville, but they've all gotten wealthy and moved down into Williamson County.
Okay. All right. I'll start wrapping this up. We got some more. Anybody, I don't see more hands up. How you doing with chat there, Barry?
All clear.
Thank you, everyone. And unless there's something more here, I'm gonna pull the plug here and we'll see everybody next.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for coming.
Take care,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Thanks again. Appreciate
Thank
it.
Thank you,
all.
Laura.